Greetings, everyone. It's Mike Yao with Savage Kingdoms role-playing game, Fire in the Head Productions. Just want to do a quick video about the Savage East, the brand new Kickstarter campaign that we have going on right now. It's been going on for about 13 days now. So there are 17 days remaining in the 30-day campaign. We're a little over 50% of our goal right now, which is great. Yeah, contribute. See this video if you need this video. Hopefully it'll just be a short thing about the Savage East. Once you see it, or even before, contribute to the campaign, especially if you were supporting the original Kickstarter campaign, which was the core rulebook for Savage Kingdom, which covered the Western continent. So this Kickstarter project, obviously called the Savage East, is about the eastern lands of the known worlds, or known world of Savage Kingdoms. In other words, the lands across the Dragon Sea. And here's a quick map. Actually, you can see right there. That is well, at the very top is Ragnagard, an island continent, which is covered somewhat in the Gazetteer chapter of the core rulebook. That main continent right there is called Hassan. Hassan is an Asiatic sort of continent that combines Middle Eastern and Far Eastern themes. And that huge land bridge, that peninsula-like mountain range, joins the top of Imanju. Imanju is another continent, an African-themed continent. So anyway, all of this is basically the east, or the Savage East. And then you see a peninsula there with R. R has an Egyptian theme to it. It's actually probably one of my favorite places. Zarkon, right there, that small, narrow peninsula there that lies low near the Sea of Shadow, that actually was the seat of civilization, of human civilization, long time, 2,300, 2,200 years ago, I think, when man first started developing, and he really kind of developed more in the east and also in the Pridonian Isles in the west. Humankind was enslaved by the Sleer, the serpentine race of the Sleer, which is a playable race that shows up in the core rulebook. But they are essentially actually a non-human race of the east. But I put them in the core rulebook just to give another option for people, and they are known somewhat in the west, not very well known, but they have made their way over there because they are fairly advanced in their alchemical technology, or their magical approach to technology, so to speak. But the Sleer basically had dominated humankind for about a millennia, for about 1,000 years, maybe a little bit more. When mankind eventually evolved and learned things, particularly from their masters, they eventually overthrew the Sleer, basically broke off the yoke of their masters, and eventually started forming city-states. Now these city-states were collectively known regionally as Zarkon, which basically means realm of the stars, but there's a whole, I won't go into all that, but anyway, that's what it means. Some people think it actually means an old Zarkonite dark realm. It actually means star realm. So they eventually, they were 9 provinces of Zarkon. Each one ruled by a witch lord, as they were termed, not so much at the time, but as they were known in history later on. They were these domineering, as you can probably tell by the name witch lord, generally sorcerers. Some were priests of the dark god Zur. Zur was a god of darkness, a god of serpents. Many people believed he was the great serpent that wove around the world and spun it, and the 2 moons in the sky were its eyes. Whether that's true or not, no one really knows, but that is much of the lore. So following Zur and his priests learning sorcery and secrets from the Sleer, that's how humans kind of rose to their level of civilization in this part of the world. So humankind really had kind of a dark start. And again, this harkens, if this seems at all Conan-esque or Robert E. Howard-esque, then you've got the right idea. As it says in the foreword of the core rulebook, and as I might have mentioned in previous videos, Savage Kingdoms, and you can probably tell by the name, is very steeped in pulp, sword, and sorcery, particularly Robert E. Howard's brand of sword and sorcery from the 1920s and 1930s. With Conan the Cimmerian, of course, probably the most famous character of his, as well as Kull the Conqueror, etc. Um, and in the Savage East, in the East, there's even more of a Conan-esque feel to the game because many of the original Howardian stories had his adventurer Conan exploring the more exotic realms of the East and South, being that he was a northerner. And it was Howard's kind of excuse or reason to sort of explore these more mystical, these interesting, exotic, more mystical realms. So anyway, so whereas the western continent of Astagonia definitely has some Conan elements to it, the Savage East probably has even more so. And again, the other elements of Savage Kingdoms are Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings and many others, but those are probably the main themes and flavors that are running through the game, particularly in the Savage East, which is what we're talking about today. So getting back on topic, so that was a map of the East. That's a preliminary color map that I did, like I said, probably 8 or 9 years ago, when the campaign was really a setting for D&D and Pathfinder. But as I might have explained in a previous video, a lot of my players, I had a lot of house rules, and I had a lot of players that really liked some of the house rules, and the setting became so detailed that it almost became its own game system in and of itself. So I decided to officially make it so and create a game system around that, which started about a year and a half to 2 years ago. Probably closer to 2 years ago that I really sat down with that core. And of course, the game mechanics are really not at all like D&D and Pathfinder anymore, which is good. I don't want to copy them as much as I generally enjoy those systems. It does use a D20. In fact, that's all it uses. The only die that it uses. The GM may find it useful for other types of dice, but player characters only need D20s. Everything runs off of a D20. But that is stuff for previous videos. So back to the campaign thing really quickly. The Savage East covers Hasan and Manju, and they cover a little bit more about the Isle Continents of Mezca and Ragnagard, those various cultures. And just to hit on some of the other cultures, just really quickly, we have, that's Astagonia, the Western Continent. Because basically this is all one big poster map. There you go. The Dragon Sea is in the middle. And again, I'm shouting and really close to the camera again. I apologize. I'm using my stage projection voice. Hopefully that will help because I'm just running off my internal mic here. My external mic is not working at the moment thanks to my cat. But that's okay. We'll make do for right now until I can get it repaired or get another one. Again, the East. So we have in the north we have Volnarak. That's another Nordic type race. They came across the sea, settled there, being great seafarers. There are several kingdoms of that flavor over in the west, and this one's even similar but different enough. The Yuntillans, as you can see, Yuntillan hordes, or the Yuntilla people, those are Mongolian type horsemen that range all through the Great Plains and tundra of that region. The Forbidden Lands are the lands of the Oni, which are demonic creatures beyond the Forbidden Mountains. And then south of that is Taikanara, a Chinese-flavored realm ruled by a god king. And Shumal and Tajahari have Indian or Hindu flavors to it. And then we have the great empire of Zaramad, or the Zaramese Empire. It's a very Persian-like empire that's dominated many cultures and desert tribes, and increasing the tax pool of the emperor, of course. It's probably 1.5 times the size of the Larinthian Empire, which is more of a Romanesque empire across the Dragon Sea back in the west, which is again covered in the core rulebook. And Assyria is an Arabic-type realm that's actually maintained its independence so far. It's at odds with the empire, but they've yet to come into direct, any major conflict. There's lots of border skirmishes and stuff going on, but so far Assyria has maintained its independence. They're known to explore. They crossed their merchants crossed the Dragon Sea many years ago, and they've actually made contact with the West a long time ago. Then we have R. R, despite the name R, which sounds almost like a pirate realm, R is actually an Egyptian-themed realm. Actually, we'll get rid of the one R. It's spelled AR now, but again, this is an older map of pyramid-type cities. It actually was once the province of Zarkon. As you can see, the northeast of R, right along the Sea of Shadow, is Zarkon, which is now a blighted wasteland, a horrible place. No one would want to go there. Actually, player-wise, it probably would be a blast, and it has been a blast in past campaigns, sometimes quite literally. But for most sane characters, no one would probably want to be caught dead or undead there. But anyway, that was the seat of humankind a long time ago in the east. The Sleer had enslaved mankind, I mean, quite literally, for about a millennia, for about 1,000 years. Humans eventually evolved high enough and learned enough tricks and educated themselves to kind of throw off the yoke of the Sleer, the Serpentine race, which again are featured in the core rulebook, although they are more set to the east actually. And humans therefore started building city-states, and there were 9 of these provincial city-states, each one ruled by what was known as a witch lord, basically a priest king or sorcerer king, and collectively that entire region was known as Zarkon. Again, right now it's a blighted wasteland, but 2,200 years ago, it was a great realm. It was a seat of civilization for mankind, particularly in the east. And it rose to great prominence, and one of the provinces, known as R, became very powerful and very wealthy, and also developed a more moralistic attitude, a little more sense of honor and morality, because Zarkon, the humans of Zarkon, had basically founded much of their society off of the secrets of dark magic, off of sorcery and alchemy learned from the Sleer, and also in their worship of Zur, the god of darkness, the god of serpents, and said to be the great serpent that circles the world and actually turns it in the black void of space, the 2 moons being its 2 eyes at night. Whether that's true or not, no one really knows. Perhaps even I don't know, but that's the lore on it. So there was a great war, the War of Light and Darkness, or also known as the War of Shadow, happened between R and the other city-states of Zarkon, and it destroyed much of the land, many people, but R eventually basically won its independence, and so it survived as the great realm of that culture while Zarkon was destroyed, and due to horrible sorceries used, it just became this terrible wasteland. So yeah, enough about that, but that's just to whet your appetite about it. And then we have, again, you see the land bridge at the bottom, that mountainous range that joins Imanju, the African type continent that's down at the bottom. It is mapped out, but very crudely, so I'm not really showing that one. And you can see the Golden Sea, the Sea of Shadow, the Dragon Sea, of course, the main sea, the Twilight Sea, the Forbidden Sea, etc. The Valdrak Mountains are a major geographical feature. The Sea of Sand I already talked about. The Blood River really is kind of the defining feature that divides south and north on the continent of Hassan. It's not literally a river of blood, but it's called that because so many wars have been fought around there. There used to be a great empire called Galagadson that existed north, where there's now Kor and Erland and part of southern Yantilla. That was very often at odds with the Zarian Empire, which was empire of the south. Before it fell apart, became independent city-states, and then now has re-risen as another empire of the Zarmis, while the Galagadson Empire is just basically in ruins. There were some massive cities they built, so there's some great, awesome, giant ruins up there to explore. So yeah, so basically that's, in a nutshell, the Savage East. Those are some of the playable cultures that you'll be able to play as humans. We'll introduce a new non-human race called the Jan. The Jan are a genie-type race, or the Jani. Each comprised of the 4 traditional elements: air, earth, fire, and water. And we possibly will introduce a second non-human race, maybe even a third, but I'm not quite sure. I'm still messing around with what would happen there. The Sleer and the Chernari, which are introduced in the core rulebook, are technically more Eastern non-human races, but I wanted to stick them in there for variety and just to make sure we got them out in case the second project never happened. Hopefully it will. If you guys can contribute and we can make our goal, we can make this thing happen. Very excited to introduce the rest of the known world for you guys to play in and for myself to game in as well. Um, so yeah, and there'll be some new religions. You'll learn about some interesting new gods, new deities such as Haji and let's see, Zara, god of prophecy and rain, which is important to a desert-based people. Zintaga, a demon god of worshipped often by assassins and ninjas, and who else? Tarn, who's the realm of Tarnia is basically. I don't know if I showed you Tarnia, but it's a Franco-Italian flavored realm. Um, People that originally settled were basically lived in the West and actually crossed the Dragon Sea to escape the domination of the Laurentian Empire. So they are originally Westerners, kind of like the Volner and even the Irish that fled the Laurentian Empire or came over here for other reasons. So so the Tarnians have named their realm after Tarn, which is their patriot god. He's a god of very strict, severe god of vengeance and fire and justice and honor. But whereas Saint Paladir in the West is perhaps a little softer and a little more chivalric. Tarn is a little more hardcore actually. However, he was once the one true god of Tarnia. The Tarnians now accept outside religions, though reluctantly they're more open to them nowadays. And a god Arios. Arios is the god of light, the god of the sun, really the light in general that sort of rules R. But there are other deities that the Aryans refer to too, but he is definitely the chief god. The Aryans are obsessed with light and sunlight. Many of them kind of fear darkness. And it's said to go back to their roots with the Zarkonians. That's actually one of the blood talents you can choose now is Zarkonian blood. So though the Zarkonians no longer exist, some of their unspoiled bloodlines continue with the Aryans. And that can give you some cool little game mechanic benefits and possibly penalties as well. But better yet, some really good role-playing possibilities, story possibilities. What else do I want to mention really quick before I wrap up? I think that's pretty much it. I was just going over some of the gods. Yeah, Chai Sheng, main god of Taikanara. There's various other deities as well, various cultures, various languages that you guys will see in the Savage East. More creatures. The Savage Bestiary is coming out that will cover most of those. But there'll probably be some new creatures even still in like a little bestiary chapter of the book. You'll see new talents, new weaknesses probably no more new skills. I like the 30 base skills we already have in the core system, but things like brawling will be more interesting, I think, because we will some of the Eastern cultures have martial arts styles, so there'll be some cool empty-handed unarmed fighting, some martial arts in the traditional sense of the term. So the brawling school will be made use of that. Probably some new weapons. You'll see the Tulwar, which is basically a great scimitar, a two-handed scimitar. Probably some other things as well. Maybe the great bow, like a Daikyu, that sort of thing. Katar, which are punching daggers. Probably see some of those. We'll probably stat those out. Probably some new armor types like Lamellar, etc. Maybe a few other pieces of equipment. But yeah, all in all, the book will probably end up being 200 to 220 pages. Soft cover as well as PDF. Soft cover will probably feature evidence site on the price yet because it's not done. In fact, it's only about 15% written, but I'm having a good time writing it so far. And anyway, it'll probably run at around $19 to $20 because the whole rule book runs at $24.95, so that sounds about right. That's 305 pages. So, all right, well, thanks you guys for watching this. Hopefully you lasted the near 20 minutes. Again, my name is Mike with Savage Kingdom's role-playing game, Fire in the Head Productions. Check out the new Kickstarter campaign if you haven't purchased the PDF of the original core rulebook or the softcover. You can get in your pre-orders to me with your email address via my PayPal. I can just PayPal you. Or you can download the PDF from drivethroughrpg.com. So again, thanks, and talk to you guys again soon. In the meantime, happy adventuring.